Hey guys, tonight we're going on a journey through time, a historical butterfly effect that starts with something incredibly small. A forgotten, seemingly insignificant observation in the deserts of ancient Mesopotamia, and spirals into the most bizarre beliefs about gods from space. You'll witness how this tiny ripple in the past, a flicker of light in the night sky, slowly, almost imperceptibly, snowballs into entire civilizations believing their deities descended from the stars. You probably wouldn't expect this outcome from such humble beginnings, but history, as you'll soon discover, loves its curveballs. Before we jump in, if you enjoy what's happening on this channel, a quick like and a subscribe would be amazing. It truly helps more than you know. And hey, let me know where you're listening from in the comments, your city, your country, and what time it is for you right now. Alright, let's leave the day behind. I invite you to take a slow, deep breath, find your comfortable spot, and let's begin. Imagine, if you will, being transported back thousands of years. You're not in your cozy bed. Instead, you find yourself under the vast, inky black canvas of the Mesopotamian night sky. The air is still, save for the whisper of sand, and the stars, oh the stars, they blaze with a clarity that modern city dwellers can only dream of. There's no light pollution here, no glowing screens to distract your gaze. It's just you, the cool desert floor beneath your bare feet, and a celestial tapestry so dense it feels as though you could reach out and pluck a diamond from it. Now, picture an ancient Akkadian or Sumerian priest-astronomer. Perhaps his name was Nabu-Shum-Lishar, or maybe just the one who watches. He isn't worried about deadlines or traffic. His entire purpose, his sacred duty, is to observe the heavens. Every night, with meticulous dedication, he charts the movements of the planets, the moon, and the constellations, noting every shift, every twinkle. He's not using a telescope, mind you. His instruments are simply his keen eyes, perhaps a gnomon to mark shadows, and clay tablets to meticulously scratch down his observations. This guy was the original data scientist, just with fewer spreadsheets and more mud. One particular night, as you stand beside him, a faint, unusual glint catches his eye. It's not a star, not a familiar planet. It moves, ever so slightly, with a strange, almost deliberate trajectory across the firmament. It's too slow for a shooting star, too consistent for a mere atmospheric anomaly. In this era, when the world was a mystery and the heavens were the direct domain of the divine, any deviation from the predictable order of the cosmos was not just a curiosity, it was a message. A profound, often terrifying communication from the powers that governed existence. Our skywatcher, his heart quickening, observes this anomaly for several nights. He sees it, you see it, a persistent, distant gleam, perhaps a meteor shower fragment catching the sun at just the right angle, or even a slow-moving luminous cloud, but to him, to you, it defies natural explanation. It's an object moving with a purpose. In their worldview, the heavens were not empty space but the dwelling place of mighty anthropomorphic deities. The moon god Sin, the sun god Shamash, the fierce goddess Ishtar, they all had their celestial homes. So, when this inexplicable glint appeared, the logical, deeply ingrained conclusion for our ancient observer was not space rock or atmospheric optics. No, the only rational explanation within the framework of his understanding was that this was a manifestation, a sign. Perhaps a god or goddess, or one of their divine chariots, was making a rare, fleeting passage through the sky. Think about it, without our modern understanding of physics or astronomy, what else could it be? It wasn't a bird, it wasn't a cloud. It was something else. Something divine. The mainstream historical fact here is the incredible sophistication of Mesopotamian astronomy. They developed sophisticated calendar systems, could predict eclipses, and meticulously cataloged celestial movements, influencing later Greek and even modern astronomy. They weren't just staring blankly at the sky, they were serious students of it. The quirky tidbit is how their meticulousness sometimes led to highly imaginative interpretations. Because they knew the heavens were alive with gods, every unusual occurrence was quickly folded into their rich mythology. This glint, this persistent, enigmatic light wasn't just observed, it was interpreted through a lens of deep spiritual awe and fear. This initial, profound misinterpretation, this single fleeting glint in the ancient Mesopotamian sky being perceived as a divine celestial craft, created the very first, almost imperceptible tremor in our historical butterfly effect. Because once something is understood as divine, it sets in motion a chain of belief that begins to shape everything: art, religion, social structure, and eventually, the very idea of where gods come from. This small observation, this initial, "What was that?" moment, is the connecting thread that will begin to weave itself into the very fabric of how humans across civilizations came to view their gods, paving the way for cosmic deities and eventually bizarre beliefs about visitors from space. It's the flutter of the butterfly's wing a long, long time ago. Section 2. Sumerian God King's Descent. Now, fast forward just a little bit, maybe a few centuries, from that single, perplexing glint in the Mesopotamian sky. You're still in ancient Mesopotamia, but we've shifted slightly, perhaps to the bustling city-states of Sumer, Uruk, Lagash. These aren't just collections of huts. We're talking about complex societies with ziggurats piercing the sky, sophisticated irrigation systems, and a writing system, cuneiform, that allowed for the recording of everything from grain inventories to epic poems. This is where civilization, as many define it, really starts to take root. Remember that initial misinterpretation, that celestial phenomenon seen by our ancient skywatcher? Well, the idea that something other was up there, something powerful and non-earthly, didn't just vanish into the desert winds. Oh no. That seed of an idea, planted by a single observation, began to germinate in the rich soil of Sumerian mythology. You see, the Sumerians already had a pantheon of powerful gods. Enlil, the god of wind and storms; Enki, the god of water and wisdom; Inanna, goddess of love and war. But their myths, even more than the Akkadian ones, began to emphasize a profound connection between these deities and the heavens. It wasn't enough for the gods to simply reside in the sky. The narrative shifted, becoming more literal, more dramatic. Myths began to proliferate, telling tales of how these gods descended from the heavens. They didn't just create the world from some distant, ethereal plane. They came down. They established the first cities, taught humanity agriculture, writing, and the arts of civilization. They were, in essence, the ultimate teachers, the divine architects of human society, arriving from a place beyond mortal comprehension, the stars. This belief wasn't just folklore, it was foundational to their entire worldview. Consider the Anunnaki, a group of deities central to Sumerian and later Akkadian mythology. While their exact nature varies across different texts, the consistent thread is their origin. They are the princely offspring, or those of royal blood, often associated directly with the heavens. Some texts even describe them descending to earth to establish order. This is a crucial step in our butterfly effect. The transition from gods are in the sky, to gods came from the sky. It's a subtle but profound shift that hints at an extraterrestrial origin, even if the Sumerians didn't have that specific vocabulary. It implies a journey, an arrival, rather than a mere presence. The concept of divine kingship also emerges strongly here. The Sumerian kings weren't just powerful rulers. They were often seen as intermediaries chosen by the gods, or even as having a direct, almost biological link to these celestial beings. The very first kings, according to their king list, reigned for impossibly long periods, often thousands of years, almost as if they were not quite human, a hint that their lineage stretched back to those initial, powerful descents. It's like saying your great-great-grandpa was an astronaut, but way more divine and with better robes. A mainstream historical fact here is the Sumerian king list, an ancient manuscript that lists the kings of Sumer and their supposed reigns, starting from mythological antediluvian rulers. The incredibly long reigns attributed to the earliest kings, such as Alulim reigning for 28,800 years, are a fascinating example of how myth and history were intertwined. The quirky tidbit is how some modern ancient astronaut theorists interpret these immense lifespans and the concept of descent from heaven as literal evidence of extraterrestrial visitors who jump-started human civilization, seeing the Anunnaki not as deities but as advanced alien beings. This belief in gods who physically descended from the heavens, establishing civilization and even intermingling with humanity, created a powerful precedent. It wasn't just a fleeting idea, it became embedded in their temples, their rituals, their social hierarchy, and their very understanding of their own origins. This foundational concept, that divinity arrives from beyond the earthly sphere, is the connecting thread that will travel through time and across cultures, subtly influencing how later civilizations perceive their own deities and setting the stage for even more complex, and frankly bizarre, beliefs about visitors from space. Section 3. Egyptian Pharaoh Star Origin. Okay, you've seen how that initial glint in the Mesopotamian sky slowly blossomed into the Sumerian belief that gods literally descended from the heavens to kickstart civilization. Now, let's drift west, across the arid landscapes, following the trade routes and the slow, deliberate seep of ideas, until you find yourself by the life-giving waters of the Nile. We've landed in ancient Egypt, a civilization renowned for its enduring monuments, its intricate funerary rituals, and its absolutely wild obsession with the afterlife. And guess what? Their pharaohs had a direct line to the stars, thanks to a conceptual lineage that, in a roundabout way, traces its roots back to that very first celestial misinterpretation. In Egypt, the pharaoh wasn't just a king, he was a living god. Not just chosen by the gods, but often considered a physical manifestation of a deity, most notably Horus, the falcon-headed god. And after death, he would ascend to become one with Osiris, the god of the afterlife, or even merge with the sun god Ra. But here's the cosmic twist. A significant portion of Egyptian theology, particularly concerning the pharaoh and the afterlife, revolved around celestial ascension and star god identification. Consider the pyramid texts, inscribed inside the pyramids of the Old Kingdom. These aren't just pretty hieroglyphs. They're incredibly ancient spells and incantations designed to help the deceased pharaoh navigate the perils of the afterlife and achieve his ultimate destiny. And where was that destiny? Often, it was among the imperishable stars of the northern sky, specifically the circumpolar stars that never set, symbolizing eternity. The pharaoh was meant to climb to the sky among the imperishable ones, to become a star himself, or to join the gods who resided there. This wasn't just poetic imagery. The Egyptians had a profound, almost literal belief in the sky as the realm of the divine. Gods like Nut, the sky goddess, stretched her body across the heavens, her skin adorned with stars. Ra, the sun god, traveled across the sky in his solar bark. And if the sun god travels by boat in the sky, well, it's not too far a leap to imagine other gods, or even the souls of departed pharaohs, making similar cosmic journeys. It's like they were operating a divine intergalactic ferry service, just without the ticket gates. The mainstream historical fact is the profound importance of the stars and celestial bodies in Egyptian religion and funerary practices, particularly the pyramid texts and coffin texts, which detail the pharaoh's journey to the stars. The quirky tidbit is how the alignment of structures like the pyramids of Giza with specific stars, like Orion's belt for the three main pyramids, is sometimes interpreted by fringe theories as evidence of advanced astronomical knowledge passed down by extraterrestrial beings, rather than simply sophisticated human engineering and celestial observation. While mainstream Egyptology views these alignments as symbolic and religious, reflecting their worldview, the idea that the stars literally held their divine ancestors was a very real belief for the Egyptians. This evolving concept, from gods descending to gods and pharaohs ascending to and residing among the stars, solidifies the celestial origin of divinity. It moves beyond a one-time event to an ongoing cosmic drama, where the heavens aren't just a dwelling, but a destination and a source of power. This deep-seated Egyptian belief in a stellar afterlife and divine pharaoh connection is the connecting thread that will continue to subtly redefine the divine as fundamentally cosmic, paving the way for later cultures to place their own gods in ever more distant, mysterious, and eventually alien abodes. Section 4. Greek Pantheon's Cosmic Home. You've witnessed the Mesopotamian glint transform into Sumerian gods descending, and then the Egyptian pharaohs ascending to join the stars. Now, let's traverse the Mediterranean, sailing west with the currents of trade and cultural exchange, to the sun-drenched lands of ancient Greece. Here you find yourself amidst a vibrant tapestry of myths, where gods and goddesses are less about celestial travelogues and more about epic dramas, intense personal relationships, and often, frankly, a lot of very human-like drama. But despite their earthly squabbles, the Greek pantheon still had a decidedly cosmic address, solidifying the celestial link to divinity. The core of Greek mythology, as you probably know, revolves around the Olympians: Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, and all the rest. And where do they live? Not in a quaint little village down the road, but atop Mount Olympus, a towering, mystical peak that was often described as piercing the clouds and reaching into the heavens. While Mount Olympus is a real mountain, its mythical portrayal transcended mere geography. It was often depicted as a realm entirely separate from the mortal world, a place of pure ether and divine light, far above the earthly plane. It was, in essence, their celestial abode, a kind of divine space station, if you will, just with more toga parties and fewer rocket launches. But the cosmic connection goes deeper than just a fancy mountaintop. Many of the Greek gods were directly associated with celestial bodies or cosmic forces. Helios was the sun god, Selene the moon goddess, and Eos the goddess of dawn. Beyond these direct personifications, the very fabric of their universe was seen as having a divine order. The cosmos itself was a vast, ordered entity, created and maintained by primordial deities like Chaos, Gaia, Earth, and Uranus, Sky. This emphasis on the sky, the heavens, and the cosmos as the domain and source of divine power was a direct continuation of that subtle thread we've been tracing. Consider Zeus, the king of the gods. His primary weapon is the thunderbolt, a weapon of the sky, demonstrating his mastery over atmospheric and celestial phenomena. He rules from on high, observing and influencing the affairs of mortals from his lofty perch. While the Greeks often brought their gods down to earth to meddle in human affairs, which, let's be honest, made for much better stories than gods just chilling in space, the fundamental concept of their power and origin was still intrinsically linked to the heavens. They were from that higher, cosmic realm, even if they frequently visited the terrestrial one. It's like having a summer home on Earth when your main pad is in the Andromeda galaxy. A mainstream historical fact is the pervasive influence of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, which vividly describe the Olympians and their roles, often portraying them interacting with mortals from their celestial dwelling. The quirky tidbit is how some scholars and later philosophical movements like Neoplatonism would interpret the Greek gods not just as personifications of natural forces but as archetypal representations of cosmic principles, or even as higher intelligences residing in celestial spheres, subtly pushing towards a more abstract, almost alien understanding of their divine nature. This establishment of a clear, albeit mythical, cosmic residence for the most powerful deities further entrenches the idea that divine power emanates from beyond the terrestrial world. The Greeks' personification of cosmic forces and their placement of Olympus high in the heavens continued to build upon the notion of celestial divinity, setting the connecting thread for future civilizations to look upwards for their gods, making the leap to extraterrestrial origins feel less like a jump and more like a gentle step into the void. Section 5. Roman Adoption, Stellar Omens. Alright, you've journeyed from the Mesopotamian glint to Sumerian descents, Egyptian stellar pharaohs, Greek cosmic abodes, and Roman celestial omens. Now let's march with the legions, or perhaps just casually stroll through the forum, into the heart of ancient Rome. The Romans, being the pragmatic and often rather unoriginal bunch they were, didn't so much invent their gods as they enthusiastically adopted them. They took the Greek pantheon, gave them snazzier Latin names. Zeus became Jupiter, Hera became Juno, Poseidon became Neptune, and so on, and then integrated them into their own vast empire. But in this adoption, something subtle yet significant happened regarding the celestial connection to divinity. The heavens weren't just a home for the gods. They became a bustling billboard for their omens. For the Romans, practicality was king, and their religion was often less about personal spiritual journeys and more about maintaining the Pax Deorum, the peace of the gods, to ensure the prosperity and stability of the state. This meant meticulously observing signs and portents, especially those from the sky. Unlike the Greeks who enjoyed a good divine drama, the Romans saw the heavens as a direct line of communication, a celestial telegraph sending messages, warnings, and blessings. You see, for a Roman, a comet wasn't just a pretty tale of dust and ice. It was a comet of doom, or perhaps a sign of impending victory. A flash of lightning wasn't just static discharge. It was a direct message from Jupiter himself, often interpreted by augurs to determine the gods will before major undertakings, like going to war or building a new aqueduct. The flight of birds, the entrails of sacrificed animals, these were all important, sure, but the stellar omens carried a particular weight, a divine gravitas that suggested a higher, more direct intervention from the celestial deities. It was like their version of checking the divine weather report before leaving the house, but with much higher stakes. This focus on omens, particularly celestial ones, deepened the connection between the gods and the heavens. It wasn't just that the gods lived up there, it was that they were actively communicating from up there, using the stars, the planets, and transient celestial phenomena as their divine messengers. This added a layer of immediacy and active participation from the cosmos in human affairs. The sky wasn't just a static backdrop, it was a dynamic, living canvas upon which the will of the gods was constantly being drawn. A mainstream historical fact is the vital role of augury and prodigies in Roman religion and state affairs. Roman officials, especially the augurs, were empowered to interpret celestial events, bird flights, and other signs to determine divine approval or disapproval for political and military actions. The quirky tidbit is how specific celestial events, like the appearance of a comet after Julius Caesar's assassination, were swiftly interpreted as signs of his deification, the Sidus Iulium or Julian star, reinforcing the idea that great individuals could ascend to the heavens and become a star, or that stars themselves could signify divine presence. The Roman emphasis on celestial omens firmly cemented the heavens as a realm of active divine communication and intervention, making the divine not just from the sky, but constantly influencing from it. This practical, omen-driven approach further solidified the deep, intrinsic link between the cosmos and divine power, adding a layer of tangible interaction that had been less pronounced before. This active, communicative role of the heavens is the connecting thread that will lead future generations to scrutinize every celestial anomaly, paving the way for even wilder interpretations of what or who might be sending these messages from the great beyond. Section 6. Medieval Comet Fear, Divine Wrath. You've witnessed the medieval skies, dark with fear and fiery comets, each a divine warning. Now let's hurtle through time, past the fall of Rome, and land squarely in the European Middle Ages. You find yourself in a world transformed, where the towering cathedrals dominate the skyline, and Christian theology has largely supplanted the old pagan pantheons. But here's the kicker. Even with a singular, omnipresent God, the heavens remained a crucial canvas for divine messages, though the tone shifted dramatically from subtle hints to outright divine wrath, often heralded by the dramatic appearance of comets. In this era, scientific understanding of celestial mechanics was, shall we say, a work in progress. Astronomy was often intertwined with astrology, and the movements of heavenly bodies were rarely seen as purely natural phenomena. Instead, they were divine pronouncements, direct interventions from an all-powerful, often judgmental God. And few celestial events struck more terror and awe into the hearts of medieval people than the sudden, brilliant, and utterly unpredictable appearance of a comet. Imagine being a peasant in the 11th century. You're toiling in the fields, your life is hard, filled with superstition, and suddenly one night a fiery, hairy star, that's what comet literally means in Greek, by the way, streaks across the sky, its tail blazing like a celestial sword. No one had predicted it. No one understood its true nature. The immediate, overwhelming conclusion for nearly everyone was that this was a sign from God. But not just any sign, it was almost always a harbinger of doom. Famine? Plague? Or the death of a king? Oh yes, all of the above probably. It was the universe's equivalent of a giant, fiery beware sign pointing directly at your bad decisions. The mainstream historical fact is the widespread belief in the Middle Ages that comets were portents of disaster. Perhaps the most famous example is Halley's Comet, which appeared in 1066, just before the Norman conquest of England. It was widely interpreted as a sign that King Harold II's reign was doomed, reinforcing William the Conqueror's claim. This interpretation was even famously depicted on the Bayeux Tapestry, illustrating how deeply ingrained this celestial fear was. The quirky tidbit is that while many feared comets as evil omens, some theological interpretations also saw them as signs of divine judgment, a cosmic warning shot to a sinful humanity, rather than just random bad luck. It was like God was sending a celestial tweet, but in all caps with a fire emoji. This deep-seated fear and interpretation of celestial phenomena as direct, often wrathful communication from God solidified the heavens as not just a home for the divine, but as a dynamic stage for active, undeniable divine intervention. The skies were not just watched, they were feared and reverenced as the ultimate source of power and destiny. This dramatic, omen-filled view of the heavens is the connecting thread that will persist even as scientific understanding progresses, laying a psychological groundwork for later generations to attribute mysterious aerial phenomena to powerful, unseen, and often ominous, forces from above. Section 7. Renaissance Astronomy's Ripple. You've witnessed the medieval skies, dark with fear and fiery comets, each a divine warning. Now let's gently nudge time forward, out of the shadowed cloisters and into the dawn of the Renaissance. You find yourself in a world reawakening, where human reason and observation are beginning to challenge long-held dogmas. This is the age of intellectual giants, of artists and explorers, and crucially, of astronomers who dared to look at the heavens not just as a canvas for divine wrath, but as a system governed by laws that could be understood. Think of figures like Nicholas Copernicus. For centuries, everyone from peasants to popes believed that the Earth was the unmoving center of the universe, with the sun, moon, and stars revolving around us. It just felt right, didn't it? And it aligned perfectly with a geocentric religious worldview where humanity was the pinnacle of creation. But Copernicus, a quiet Polish canon, started doing the math. And the math, inconveniently, suggested something different. That the Earth, along with the other planets, actually revolved around the Sun. He published his heliocentric model, De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium, famously on his deathbed. Talk about a mic drop. It was like discovering your house isn't the center of the neighborhood, but actually just one of many houses spinning around the local roundabout. This was a massive, foundational shift, a slow-motion earthquake for how humanity viewed its place in the cosmos. If the Earth wasn't the center, then perhaps humanity wasn't quite so special after all. And if the heavens operated according to predictable, mathematical laws, discovered through observation and reason, rather than solely by unpredictable divine whim, what did that mean for the gods? It didn't immediately dismiss their existence, mind you. God could still be the ultimate clockmaker who set everything in motion. But it certainly began to move the divine out of the immediate, tangible celestial sphere and into a more abstract, perhaps more distant realm. The mainstream historical fact is the profound impact of the Copernican revolution, which, alongside later work by Kepler and Galileo, fundamentally shifted the understanding of the solar system from a geocentric to a heliocentric model. This wasn't just a scientific adjustment, it had immense philosophical and theological implications. The quirky tidbit is that while Copernicus's work was initially met with resistance, its mathematical elegance eventually won over many, even some within the church, though Galileo later got into famous trouble for pushing the idea too vigorously. It's a classic case of, the facts don't care about your feelings, even if those feelings are deeply religious. This burgeoning scientific understanding, challenging millennia of geocentric and theocentric assumptions, created a subtle but significant ripple. It began to demystify the immediate heavens, transforming them from a direct stage for divine drama into a subject of scientific inquiry. This slow, steady shift, moving the divine from direct cosmic interaction to a more abstract, law-giving role, is the connecting thread that will lead to a more detached view of God's interaction with the universe, subtly preparing the ground for concepts of distant creators and, eventually, the idea that anything appearing from the sky might be something other than traditional divinity. Section 8. Enlightenment Deism's Distant Creator. You've seen how Renaissance astronomy started to gently pull back the curtain on a more mechanical, less overtly miraculous cosmos. Now, let's hurtle forward into the Enlightenment, a period of profound intellectual and philosophical revolution. You find yourself in 18th century Europe, where powdered wigs are in, and challenging traditional authority with reason and logic is definitely in vogue. This era, building on the scientific groundwork laid by Copernicus and Newton, profoundly shifted the perception of the divine from an actively meddling force to a distant cosmic architect. Imagine Isaac Newton's laws of motion and universal gravitation. He showed that the universe operated like a giant, incredibly intricate clockwork mechanism, governed by predictable universal laws. Suddenly, the erratic, hairy stars of the medieval era weren't signs of divine wrath. They were simply celestial bodies following predictable orbits. This wasn't just a scientific breakthrough, it was a philosophical earthquake. If the universe ran itself with such precision, did God really need to be constantly tweaking things, sending omens, or personally descending to tell people what to do? This gave rise to deism, a philosophical belief system popular among many Enlightenment thinkers, including some of the American founding fathers. Deists believed in God, absolutely. But their God wasn't the personal, interventionist deity of traditional Abrahamic religions. Instead, God was the ultimate clockmaker, or grand architect of the universe. He designed the universe, set it in motion with its perfect, immutable laws, and then stepped back. Like a master craftsman who builds a magnificent timepiece, winds it up, and then lets it tick on its own without constantly adjusting the gears. This meant that while God was the originator of everything, his direct, day-to-day interaction with the universe and humanity was minimal, if existent at all. He wasn't sending comets to warn kings or personally guiding planets. The divine realm, if it existed as a place, was far, far away, a cosmic workshop that had completed its grand project. This pushed the concept of God further into the abstract, beyond the reach of human perception or direct experience, making the heavens an orderly but ultimately impersonal space. It's like realizing the person who built your smartphone is probably not checking in on your TikTok habits. The mainstream historical fact is the rise of deism as a significant intellectual movement during the Enlightenment, challenging traditional religious dogma by emphasizing reason and natural law, positing a creator God who does not intervene in the universe. The quirky tidbit is how deism, while seemingly reducing God's role, actually elevated the concept of divine wisdom. The sheer genius required to create such a self-sustaining, perfectly running universe was seen as even more awe-inspiring than a constantly interfering deity. This philosophical shift, moving the divine from direct intervention to distant creation, significantly altered humanity's relationship with the heavens. The sky was no longer a stage for constant divine drama, but a testament to the initial perfect design of a far-off creator. This intellectual and spiritual distancing of God from the immediate cosmos is the connecting thread that will leave a void, a conceptual space, that later generations, in a world full of new technologies and unknown phenomena, will be eager to fill with new, even more bizarre forms of celestial intelligence. Section 9. UFO Craze Alien God Rebirth. You've journeyed through the eons, from that tiny, misunderstood glint in the Mesopotamian night to the Enlightenment's distant clockmaker God. The heavens, once teeming with actively involved deities, had become a vast, orderly but largely empty space, philosophically speaking, of course. Now brace yourself, because we're about to leap into the mid-20th century, a time of unprecedented technological advancement, global conflict, and a post-war sense of unease. You find yourself amidst the Cold War, the dawn of the space age, and suddenly the skies are no longer empty. They're filled with unidentified flying objects, and this new phenomenon ignites nothing less than an alien God rebirth. Remember how that deist God had essentially packed up his bags and left the universe to run itself? Well, that left a bit of a vacuum, didn't it? Humanity still looked up, still sought meaning in the cosmos, and still encountered things they couldn't explain. Enter Kenneth Arnold. In June of 1947, this private pilot was flying near Mount Rainier in Washington state when he reported seeing 9 shiny, disc-shaped objects flying in formation, moving at incredible speeds. He described their movement as being like a saucer skipping over water. And just like that, the term flying saucer was born, and the modern UFO craze was off to the races. Suddenly, inexplicable aerial phenomena weren't just weather balloons or secret military tests, though some certainly were and still are. In a world grappling with the atomic bomb, the vastness of space, and the dizzying pace of technological change, the idea of visitors from other planets just made sense to many. If humanity was building rockets and dreaming of space travel, why wouldn't other, more advanced civilizations already be doing it? It was like the universe suddenly decided to host an intergalactic airshow, and we were just starting to get our tickets. This wasn't just about little green men though. For a significant segment of the population, these UFOs weren't just advanced vehicles. Their occupants were seen as benevolent, or sometimes malevolent, beings of superior intelligence, power, and wisdom. They were, in essence, the new gods, or at least their emissaries. Think about it. Ancient myths spoke of sky gods who brought knowledge, built great structures, and influenced human destiny. Now, people were seeing craft in the sky, experiencing contact with beings who seemed to possess unimaginable technology and insights. It was a perfect fit for that lingering human need to look upwards for guidance and ultimate truth, filling the void left by a distant creator. This period saw the rise of the ancient astronaut theory, popularized by authors like Erich von Däniken. His book, Chariots of the Gods, published in 1968, proposed that ancient civilizations, the very ones whose beliefs we've been tracing tonight, had been visited by extraterrestrial beings who were misinterpreted as gods. The Sumerian Anunnaki? Aliens. The Egyptian pharaohs' stellar connections? Alien technology. The miraculous feats described in religious texts? Advanced alien intervention. It was like suddenly connecting all the dots we've been talking about, but with a sci-fi twist. The mainstream historical fact is the explosion of UFO sightings and cultural fascination in the post-World War II era, beginning notably with the Kenneth Arnold sighting, which quickly embedded the flying saucer, and later UFO, into global consciousness. The quirky tidbit is how quickly this phenomenon was interwoven with existing spiritual and even theological frameworks, leading to the formation of actual UFO cults, where the aliens were worshipped as spiritual saviors or advanced teachers, blurring the lines between science fiction and new religious movements. Think of Heaven's Gate, for instance, a group that believed a UFO was trailing the Hale-Bopp comet, ready to transport them to the next level of existence. This dramatic resurgence of celestial visitors, now reimagined through a technological lens as extraterrestrial beings, created a powerful, modern reinterpretation of divinity's origin. It filled the conceptual space left by a distant god and tapped into humanity's enduring fascination with the unknown above. This modern cosmic redefinition of divine intervention is the connecting thread that will lead directly to the ultimate, amplified, and diversified spread of bizarre beliefs about space gods in our hyperconnected digital age. Section 10. Internet's Cosmic Deity Spread. You've witnessed the entire incredible journey, from a single misinterpreted glint in ancient Mesopotamia, through millennia of evolving celestial beliefs, to the mid-20th century's vibrant UFO craze that effectively rebranded gods as aliens. Now we arrive at our final destination, a place you know intimately, the Internet. You find yourself in the digital age where information, whether factual or utterly fantastical, spreads at the speed of light, and this hyperconnectivity has become the ultimate amplifier for the most bizarre beliefs in gods from space. Remember that initial spark from Kenneth Arnold's sighting? The ancient astronaut theories of Erich von Däniken? Well, before the internet, these ideas, while popular, were largely confined to books, niche magazines, and late-night talk shows. Information moved slowly, filtered by traditional media gatekeepers. But then came the World Wide Web, a place where everyone has a megaphone, and every fringe theory can find its fervent echo chamber. Suddenly, those once isolated beliefs about extraterrestrial benefactors or menacing visitors from other galaxies didn't just find an audience. They found communities. Forums, blogs, YouTube channels, podcasts, social media groups, they all became digital melting pots where individuals could share evidence, swap theories, and reinforce each other's convictions. Did you see a strange light in the sky? Post it. Did you read an obscure text that sounds like it's describing a spaceship? Share it. It's like going from a small local fan club to a global convention, but the convention never ends and anyone can be a keynote speaker. This isn't just about UFO enthusiasts, mind you. The internet has allowed for the rapid cross-pollination of ideas, creating entirely new hybrid belief systems. You'll find communities discussing everything from the Pleiadians, supposedly benevolent humanoids from the Pleiades star cluster who are here to guide humanity, to the reptilians, shape-shifting extraterrestrials secretly controlling Earth, often from our governments and financial institutions because, why not? The sheer diversity and often conflicting narratives are astounding, yet they all flourish online, attracting millions. The mainstream historical fact is the unprecedented role of the internet in democratizing information dissemination and facilitating the formation of online communities, leading to the rapid global spread of ideas, including fringe theories and new spiritual movements. The quirky tidbit is how these online communities often create their own sacred texts, or prophets, through self-published ebooks, YouTube channels with millions of views, and even live-streamed contact sessions, effectively bypassing traditional religious institutions and establishing new forms of digital divinity. This global digital network, a true butterfly effect of communication, has taken that ancient Mesopotamian glint and transformed it into a supernova of diverse, often contradictory and undeniably bizarre beliefs about gods from space. The internet didn't just spread these ideas. It mutated them, amplified them, and gave them an enduring, evolving presence in our collective consciousness. And so, as the digital hum of the modern world fades into the quiet of the night, you can reflect on the astonishing journey we've just taken. From a single, fleeting observation under an ancient desert sky, misinterpreted through the lens of early awe, we've traced a line through millennia. A line that wove through Sumerian myths of divine descent, Egyptian pharaohs seeking stellar immortality, Greek gods on their cosmic mountain, and Roman skies filled with portents. We saw medieval fears of comets turn into a scientific awakening, eventually leading to a distant, abstract god, leaving a conceptual vacuum. And then, in a blink of an eye, the void was filled by the glint of flying saucers, birthing a new pantheon of alien gods, whose bizarre doctrines now spread and mutate across the boundless, interconnected web. It's a strange thought, isn't it? How a small ripple, a mere glint of light thousands of years ago, could ultimately lead to countless individuals today believing in star beings as their saviors, their ancestors, or their manipulators. The sky, once a source of fundamental truth and terrifying omens, is now a stage for alien visitation, a cosmic drama playing out across screens and minds worldwide. Take a slow, deep breath. The journey is complete. Let the strangeness of history settle. Let the bizarre beliefs drift away like clouds across the night sky. Your mind can now wander, free from the pull of ancient glints or digital signals. Just peace. Sweet dreams.